and stress and its impacts and benefits for our newborn babies. So starting off with sleep, we all love to sleep, and babies are definitely no different. Babies actually spend the majority of their time sleeping, more than they spend time awake and engaging. But why exactly is this? So babies are at the very beginning of life, meaning that everything is completely brand new to them. There's a lot of information that is being taken in, even when they're just in like the home. Every light, texture, sound, and face is so much information for a young mind to process. Therefore, babies need time to sleep in order to process and store all that information, since sleep is linked to memory formation and storage. It's definitely important that they have plenty of time in order to fulfill this process. So sleep impacts every part of the body and provides the ability to rest and reset, but can actually form as a housekeeping ability for our brains, as it removes toxins and allows for neural pathways to connect. Without sleep, those neurons are not able to connect, and neural pathways aren't able to be built in ways that are needed for babies to process all the information that they're taking in. All parts of the brain become impacted by sleep, and one of them, an important one, is called the amygdala. And this part of the brain is what controls our emotional regulation and stress responses, which we'll get to later. And this part of the brain becomes most active during REM sleep. And with proper amounts of sleep, it can signify that the refresh helps with all systems of the body, but also with encouraging emotional regulation. Now, since we touched a little bit on the nervous system, I figured I'd break it down just a little bit more. So our nervous system is the messaging system for our body. It starts in our brain, and then it's connected to the spinal cord, which connects to all of the nerves that communicate messages from our brain to every single part of the body. It signals when we are in danger and when we're safe, and everything in between, including when to sleep and to become restful. Over here, I have a picture of the nervous system, just showing how extensive it is throughout the body. So what happens when our nervous system isn't supported? Everyone experiences stress. It's kind of an inevitable part of life, but stress starts in the brain and sends signals to the rest of the body to respond accordingly. Some of those responses are slow digestion, increased heart rate and breathing, increased sweating, and temperature dysregulation, and those are just to name a few. However, there is a difference between good stress and bad stress, since it is going to be inevitable. So good stress for babies is, let's say, something is startling to the baby, but mom is quick to come and relieve that stress and offer comfort and support. By having that response from our mothers, this teaches the nervous system that there is safety and there can be trust formed. But bad stress would be prolonged exposure to something scary. So an example would be like mom and dad yelling at each other without any comfort from a parent. Without that comfort, this teaches the nervous system to constantly be activated and to be in a state of survival. So stress and prolonged stress without comfort is called toxic stress. And an example that might be helpful is the idea of letting the baby cry themselves out. So this is a kind of tradition that goes back for the history of parenting, is just allowing the baby to cry themselves out because it's supposed to teach independence and this and that. But really all that it's doing is teaching the baby that their needs are not going to be met, and kind of continues that stress response, and later leads to long-term distrust and issues with bonding. So toxic stress can actually impact development. Stress and sleep both impact every part of the body. However, sleep helps to reset, and stress turns everything on and heightens our responses. So too much stress puts the body into a survival mode, like mentioned before, and it actually doesn't leave much room for healthy development. Our bodies are amazing at keeping ourselves alive at whatever cost that takes. So when babies are in toxic stress, Their ability for learning and bonding becomes sacrificed in order to prioritize the nervous system protecting itself and staying in that fight or flight response. Now, let's talk about parent stress, since that is also a part of parenthood. Raising a baby is super difficult. There are so many factors to consider, and nothing is worse than a baby that is crying and it just feels like no matter what we do, the baby just won't stop crying and won't calm down. However, it is important that we find ways to manage our stress through any means necessary, especially what we'll talk a little bit more on later. And it's especially crucial to never take that stress out on the baby. Shaken baby syndrome is something that can happen as a result of parents becoming frustrated and overwhelmed by persistent crying, and the baby is violently shaken. And with their brains being so sensitive and their necks not quite being strong enough to support their heads, this can result in brain damage and death of tissue and potential death of the baby. Now, with seeing how daunting and damaging stress can be, and how it can impact sleep, which in turn, all of those factors impact development for the worst if not met. How do we mediate this stress? And the biggest thing is support, and even more support. Humans are social creatures and we need each other to survive. Mothers need support so that way they can support their babies. We can't always control when bad things happen and what our babies may be exposed to, but we can serve as the buffer. So when children are exposed to high levels of stress, parents comforting and nurturing their child and being a consistent form of support mediates or helps to build resilience and mediates some of the harm that can be done to the child from that prolonged stress. It is beyond important that we love and support our children through everything so that way they can grow into strong, intelligent, and independent children and later into healthy adults. So our conclusion here is that stress and sleep target every part of the body in different ways. Sleep supports healthy brain development through allowing a reset and ability to process and store all of the learned information. And stress hinders this process. Stress is inevitable, but a mother's support and comfort can mediate stress and encourage healthy development through learning, trust, and comfort. However, mothers also need support in order to do the incredible jobs they do. So with all of the information about the importance of sleep and how to mediate stress, just know that you guys got this.